Here comes the Dragon Blade for Izubro now. Goodbye, Harry Hook. He's got the Nano Boost too. Internet Hulk. Coco chips the entire team nearly. MVP Infinity tearing Envious apart right now.
Being able to use an ultimate ability properly can win a team fight. That's why it's the most core fundamental skill set that you can work on in Overwatch, because despite how you perform in the rest of the game, if you and your team can successfully utilize ultimates, you'll always have a chance to come back and open the door into the game again. The footage we're going to be looking at today is between Envious and MVP Infinity, who just recently played at Apex Season 2. However, note, this footage is taken from the previous patch meta that saw a lot of health pool and very little damage, meaning that ultimates were kind of the only way things died in that meta. So it may not perfectly translate to the meta that we're about to be going into, but what it will do is show us examples of good ultimate usage, which has always been key to Overwatch since the beginning. These next two engagements are actually very interesting. MVP Infinity is in the driver's seat with 5 ultimates up and Envious having none. They quickly combined Nano Boost, Genji Sword, and a Zarya Bubble to guarantee that it stays alive and does damage, and it wins a team fight quickly and efficiently. Even on defense, you want to be using ultimates aggressively to quickly find the entry point into the team fight and win it convincingly. Now, even after that success, and using those 2 ultimates, MVP Infinity are still in a big lead. However, a key point to remember is that their McCree went down in the fight, meaning that he's slowly coming out of spawn right now. And in hindsight, it probably would have been best if he came back as Tracer so he could have a faster impact into this upcoming fight. So not only is it going to be hard for him to leverage his ultimate that he has, but he simply won't be in the position by the time Envious pushes again. Now quickly we see a good counter example to being too hesitant with ultimates on defense. As Envious pushes in, MVP Infinity slowly staggers their ultimates, but allows Envious time to back away. And that quick, disciplined disengage bought time and distance between Envious and the lethality of MVP's ultimates. So although it's great to be able to just pop 2 ultimates onto a Genji and have him win the team fight for you, it's also important to remember that in no way can you spend ultimates and not win the fight. That's the worst thing that can happen. You have to set them up in such a way to get value to clear out that team fight. If you play a little too tentatively and just hope that popping your ultimates will just scare the enemy team into running away, they have the option to be able to disengage from them and then re-engage on an even playing field, throwing away your entire advantage. So while the Genji Sword on the first team fight worked so well, even when they popped way more ultimates in the next fight, because they were so staggered and couldn't find immediate impact into the fight, it was as if they didn't use them at all. Over-ulting is definitely a fear that you should worry about, but what's primary even above that is making sure you secure the fight. And here's an important lesson on ultimate economy. MVP's Zarya does a good job by bypassing Mickey's Diva in order to make sure that the Graviton Surge lands, but let's count how many ultimates it takes for them to win this team fight. Was it actually required? What position does this put them in now? They drop Grav, their own Sound Barrier, and Pulse Bomb, and Envious uses nothing. The good news is with this example, at least MVP got value out of all these ultimates. Perhaps the Sound Barrier wasn't necessary, but what's important to note is that now with the ultimate advantage swinging to the other side, Envious now is in a scary position. With only Breck's Earth Shatter, MVP has little to contest the Nano Visor Earth Shatter on Envious' side. It sure would have been nice to have that Sound Barrier right now, and we quickly see the effects of it right now. Breck uses his Earth Shatter and does kill the McCree, but even with a man down, Envious is able to pop multiple ultimates and steamroll on through MVP Infinity, retaking the map, taking control, and setting themselves up in a spot to win the round. This is important to note, because there's a lot of second-to-second decision-making that goes on in Overwatch. You have to kind of quickly do the math of where your team's at when you make these decisions. It doesn't matter for Envious that they lost their McCree. Ultimates, especially some of the best ones, can negate and overcome a man disadvantage if they go uncontested. Ultimates can be so powerful that they can clutch out a fight even when it looks like you're down. Because what do they lose with their McCree being out of the fight? A damage dealer? But do you really need another one if you have nano sights anyway, and the enemy can't stop it? Once Envious knows that that sound barrier's gone, and Breck already used Earth Shatter, they have nothing to be afraid of just pushing back into this point, headstrong, even a man down. In the position MVP Infinity was in, they couldn't afford to even lose one team fight. With that being the case, they had two options available to them. They had to get good value out of the Earth Shatter, and only getting one kill with it wasn't really acceptable. Or they have to make an aggressive play into the team fight to make trades happen. That might sound like a crazy idea when you're the defending team expecting them to push into you, but if they're pushing in with ultimates, Any cheeky play that you can make in order to find a frag or even a trade can pay dividends in the late mid-fight, because if they can just use ultimates in the break of the fight, you have no options to you anymore once they pop those ults, be it grav, sights, whatever. So if you're at ultimate disadvantage, you may have to do a very risky play to even have a chance in that fight. It becomes difficult in these waning moments of the round against a very disciplined team like Envious. They know that MVP Infinity is at an ultimate disadvantage, they're looking for this engage that I'm telling you is a good thing to do, and they counter it by baiting it in, and then overcoming it and having an easy team fight after that. MVP Infinity's thought process was right. Envious is just such a well-disciplined team that they didn't let it happen to them. The two things that MVP Infinity could have improved on in this team engage would be to either somehow get more aggressive or to play more safe. Now, it's scary to play more safe because pro teams with the advantages they have will slowly encroach on you and set up their ultimates in such a way that you can't respond. So, MVP Infinity takes the aggressive route, but doesn't commit deeply enough. It may sound crazy, but I would have rather of them charged into Envious's formation here, surrounded them, fighting on this big health pack, to even trade for 2 for 1 in this situation. Because, with a disadvantage, MVP Infinity needs this fight to happen quicker rather than later, because they're not going to get another fight with ultimates in this round. Either Envious is going to make a mistake, or MVP Infinity needs to make a play. And I think since they were running the double DPS flankers, with Zarya to bubble them and Ryan's pins, they had to find some value concaving onto Envious before it was too late. If they take that fight quicker, and die quicker, they might have actually had another respawn in order to get back onto the point before overtime started. But since the fight kind of trickles out over a bit of time, they don't have a respawn, especially since that some of them die closer to when overtime starts. Our last example on King's Row showcases a few more good back and forths with managing ultimate economy. Here, MVP Infinity is building up to the Zarya Dragon Strike Wombo combo, and a combination of smart positional plays and tenacious Zarya movement sets up the Graviton to wipe everything. Hanzo cleans it up, and an interesting decision on Envious's part to pop Nano there to try to deal some damage into the backline, but ultimately it's not enough. MVP Infinity's respawn's close, and the cart's not really going to get stopped for a significant amount of time, so in hindsight, that was a bit of a waste. Now, pushing up the cart up to Street's phase, definitely going to have time for another fight here, and Envious has quite a few ultimates to boot. But so does MVP Infinity. So, the ultimate battle tension couldn't be higher. Both teams are going to be jockeying to find value for their ultimates to quickly snowball the team fight in their favor. Breck slams down a few tanks, but it's not good enough. Mickey tosses up self-destruct up into the air, which forces the players of MVP Infinity to back off, which actually opens up an opportunity for Harry Hook with Visor on the side to get a few kills on his own. Bit of a nightmare scenario for MVP Infinity because they used ultimates and Envious did, but Envious won and still has an ult in their pocket. Moving up now, MVP Infinity is jockeying for position, and in order to cash in a free team fight, Envious pops Nano whole hog to guarantee that this fight is won. Only Earthshatter left for Envious, and they try to use it here, but it whiffs entirely. Envious loses the fight and is forced to back off, but luckily because they fought early enough into that team fight, the cart hadn't got any progress until the team fight was over, meaning that Envious will have another chance here. However, now MVP Infinity is in the driver's seat with ultimate advantage, and they make an interesting cheeky play to the left side here. Breck baits his team and goes for the hero play behind the enemy, finds the Nano boosted target and slams it down, and they CC Nano entirely. This is a great example of ultimate algebra, as I like to call it. Envious pops Sound Barrier and Nano Boost, which was their only resources to use in this fight, but Breck uses his Earth Shatter to get a buy one get one free deal on the ultimate exchange. Anytime that you can put in less ultimates to counteract more of their ultimates, you'll slowly win the value proposition over the course of the match in order to win the game. With the resources that Envious put into the fight being negated completely, the additional resources that MVP put in of their own Sound Barrier and Tac Visor guaranteed that they win this push. And that's something that MVP had to do. Whenever you've pushed the payload all the way through Street's phase to try to close out that checkpoint, whatever resources you have to do in a fight that you're trying to win, you have to win. Because your next opportunity to build up to be able to get up to Streets can possibly take you the entire game. If you're committed and you have that team fight there, you have to set up and prepare to win it completely. Because remember, when the gates fall down, you're going to get a lot of free cart anyway. It's not a great engage for the enemy to take right on top of the checkpoint after you get it. So you're not going to need ultimates there. And also, even if Envious did decide to then come ult you after you get the checkpoint, your spawns are closer. meaning that they're just throwing ults away for you to respawn a handful of meters away, as well as the fact that there's always a transition period where like doors and gates are opening after you claim streets, meaning that the defense actually should have a bit of a lull in their action if they play right, because they can't stop the payload anyway. And there's no reason for the defense to have to be forcing a fight when the map's getting uncontestable automatic progress regardless. Envious ends up closing out King's Row by holding them here at the Foundry, because based upon the map geometry, it's much more difficult for MVP to try to set up a clean ult engage and they don't find it. Guys, if you like this pro VOD analysis, please hit the like button. It really does let us know that you're interested in this kind of video and you want more of it. Should we start gearing our channel to be doing more and more pro stuff? I certainly would like to do that, but you have to use your voice. Vote with the like button. It tickles my fancy. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the big red button and be sure to hit the bell icon to make sure you get notifications when our videos go live. Follow us on Twitter and Twitch, linked in the description, and check out our Discord server, which is linked there as well, for the biggest Overwatch community on Discord. We're number one. We're number one. That's been it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.